two recent things in the news which make me feel a little bit concerned as a Christian. One is the blatant, in-your-face, gay pride is super, all of this is happening, etc., 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 which doesn't mention Christianity in the slightest. But it seems to be putting something in your face as though you are expected, of course you've got to believe in this. If you don't believe in this, you must be weird, strange, to be ignored, and so on. So, in a way, Christians are being persecuted by ignoring them.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The other one, be interested in your view on these both, is the Wade versus Roe situation in America and people in England protesting about it, thinking that this is right and this is wrong, and quite a bit of publicity to do with people who've stood on the picket line and who've said, you are a murderer because you are going into this abortion clinic, and at the same time an implication of this person is a Christian is put onto it. So therefore the Christian view is displayed in a very harsh way, and again I am led to feel, oh, I can't really join in with that because I've got a softer view towards it. I am not a hard protester. So where Christianity is acknowledged, I suppose the hardest possible view is publicised, and the softer, let's sit and understand all of this view is not in the slightest covered. Those are two that, to be honest, I just feel uncomfortable about seeing on television. It doesn't make me feel happy.
Yeah, no, I think this deliberate misunderstanding of the Christian view is a way of dealing with your enemy or dealing with your political opponents. It's done all the time. You routinely, deliberately misunderstand the point that your opponent is saying and take it in the worst possible light in order to show them in the worst possible light. If you want to see a fuller treatment of Roe versus Wade and the decision on abortion handed down by the Supreme Court in the United States, go to markandpete.com, where there's a recent episode on that in which we look first what Roe versus Wade was, which was a decision by the Supreme Court to ban abortions undemocratically. Now, the reversal of that particular decision is simply handing the decision back to the elected representatives in the states of the United States. So it takes no position on whether abortion is right or wrong. So it's interesting that it's been taken that way, I would say deliberately, to try and use as a campaigning tool, because there's elections coming up in the United States in November this year. So how that translates over to Britain, we have people acting as though it has an effect here, just seems to be people getting their news from America and thinking we're part of America. It sometimes happens, certainly
Although
culturally.
The point has been made that in this country, in the UK, there is no automatic right to abortion.
No, it's interesting that, in fact, Britain has stricter abortion laws than many of the states in America. You know, there's no automatic right. You need to have a reason for it. Now, in some states in America, there is no limit on when you can have an abortion. And the position of the Democrat Party in America, official position, surprisingly, is to allow for abortion up until birth.
My goodness.
The question then remains, well, why stop there? I've got an 18-year-old who's annoying sometimes.
Yes.
So why not have an abortion? So it's a lack of understanding of life. And I mean, this is not really a topic here, but the Christian view of life is one that's taken on board by lots of people. So now it's very difficult for them to argue for abortion. And the way that they have to do it is to treat it in two ways. One, it's simply a healthcare issue for the woman who's pregnant. And secondly, that the baby, when inside the womb, is not a human being. Well, whatever your view on that, those are the two things that you need to take a view on. Now, those who say abortion is wrong would say it is a human being. What else could it be? Some people say, well, it's only a potential human being. We don't know at what point life starts. But that's really not a point at issue here, because let's take another situation. Say there was a burning building. You say, what we're going to do is just blow it up to stop it passing the fire on to everyone else. Or we could pour water on it and try and go in. What do we do? And you say, well, I'm not sure. I think I heard that there was a child inside, but I'm not sure, so let's just blow it up. You wouldn't do that, would you? If you thought there might be someone inside, you would go and have a look. And so that's not really the right argument. The question is it human? Is it life? And the second thing is it just a health issue for the woman involved? And the problem with that is that only ever comes into effect in a tiny minority of cases.
Absolutely.
So you take it such a time to make a decision on the overall thing. So you could say, well, if it's a survival issue for the mother, well, let's say you can have abortion then. Let's say in terms of is it a human? Well, say we don't know, but at what point does it become human? What time does it become alive? We'll say we don't know, but at some point it does, so therefore we must regard it as being ending a life. Because we don't know, you have to treat it in that way. So then you can have a discussion about whether you can have an abortion and at what time. And I would say, with the Christian view of life, the answer is if you've taken out survival of the mother, the answer is never. So that would be my view, that abortion is wrong. But then you have to go to a further level and say, in that case, is the mother a murderer for having her baby aborted? Or is it the doctor who's actually carrying out the abortion? Well, those, of course, are important issues to discuss.
Yes.
But they're secondary to whether you think it's murder or not. Well, that would be my take of the issue. But in what I've just said, though, Beryl, do you think that would be taken as an extreme, intolerant Christian view, wouldn't it?
Yes, I guess so. I think, in actual fact, if you were to go to a whole bunch of pregnant women and ask them, do they have a live human being inside them?
Yes.
Surely, from the evidence that they have and what they feel and the experience that they have of pregnancy, they would be bound. Yes, this is something that is alive in me.
Just to close out this, I think one of the things that's routinely ignored in this debate in terms of care for the mother is what happens after you have an abortion.
Yes.
There are some people who claim not to regret it. Most women regret it not just a little bit, but very deeply, and they feel it for the rest of their lives as a weight of shame. In encouraging abortion, you are encouraging that feeling, that blight on the life of women for the rest of their lives. So that needs to be taken very seriously, because that's what I hear from, I mean, obviously I'm not a woman, so I haven't had an abortion, but that's the report that I hear back. So just going on evidence, the vast majority of women deeply, deeply regret having had the abortion.
I think we actually ought to bring together the women who have had abortions and women who have actually born children but had those children taken away from them.
Yes.
Particularly back in the 60s.
Yes.
We ought to bring those two together and let them talk together.
Yeah, that would be a very interesting conversation. But we started off this discussion by saying, well, the Christian view of what's going on in these times is that we could see evil at work. Is this the end times, or is it presaging a great renewal? One of those things is happening. I think probably the latter, but, I don't know any better than you. But I think the support for abortion is part of what people see as evil abroad in the world. Again, support for the majority of abortion, which are what is known as elective abortions, that is to say, for convenience.
Yes.
When you're deliberately killing the baby for convenience, that seems to me like a harking back to offering of your children to the god Moloch back in the Old Testament. Isn't it a sign that there's evil abroad, that we think it's not only okay, but a good thing to kill babies for the convenience of the mother, which is actually, let's be honest, really a convenience of the man who's produced the baby even more.
Yes.
It's for the convenience of the mother because the father didn't want to take care of the baby.
And I think we should emphasise that more, that there are two people involved.
Yes, I know we've sort of drifted into this discussion. There are two people involved. Good that you brought that up. I mentioned about some people say that the mother is then a murderer, or the doctor. What about the father?
Yes.
He should be equally implicated.
Yes.
If that's a decision to have an abortion is murder, then the father should be implicated in it. Yes. Just as we're riffing on this topic of public parades and marches, and there was the March for Jesus back in the day, there's a March for Life over in America, an anti-abortion march. But there tends to be, as you say, mainstream media approach of not really covering such marches until they're actually millions and you can't stop it. And even then, they will try and cover another demonstration or march that's actually smaller and say it's bigger. That's what I've noticed here. Whichever movement the mainstream media or the outlet involved, is in favour of. Now, March for Jesus, yes, might well be ignored, but that doesn't mean not to do it. I think there are many churches that could organise that sort of thing, and should. We should get out on the streets and support the Lord Jesus We go out on a walk for business every Good Friday. When you do that, you go out on the street and you sing songs out in the street, and people stop and film you and pay attention. It may not get out of mainstream media, but who watches mainstream media these days? I don't.
Yeah.
So we'll get out on social media, YouTube, and the much better alternatives to YouTube that are out there, Rumble, and there's YouTube. So lots of different sites where you can go. You don't have to be part of this, what used to be a monopoly.
We've got one example locally.
Yes.
With the knife angel at Birkenhead Park, that big statue that arrived a few days ago. The knife angel at Birkenhead Park, and I'd encourage people to go and have a look at it. A huge, great big statue, and it's all about handing in knives and amnesty for knives and so on. But one of the things is that a lot of local Christians have signed up to become chaplains and to stand there and be willing to talk and listen to people about their views about knife crime. Yeah. And the local authority have encouraged local Christians to do that. And it is an opportunity. We went past yesterday and there were quite a few people gathered around. I'll put in a plug. It's for the whole of July, so anybody listening to this programme, go and say hello to the knife angel.
Yes. You and Beryl Pete will say, we need to stand up and be counted, don't we? We need to speak out on issues.
I think if we were to do that, we could also encourage the police officers to travel with us in uniform.
Have a big march and demonstration
have a big march.
In favour of faith in Jesus.
Yes, because Christianity is for good, not for evil. That Christians were not evil, but were for the good of society.
Yeah, no, here is a point that I like to make where this sort of thing is brought up, about there being opposition or even deliberately ignoring the Christian view or misrepresenting. See what you think of this, Beryl. I would say is people are going to do that anyway. You might as well go big with it. So if people are going to call you bigoted if you say you're a Christian, they're going to diminish you and say, oh, that's fine for you. Or if you say you have a certain moral stance, why is it so important to you? You know, you say you think that the only expression of sexuality that is really allowed by God is what's now called straight sexuality. That's all there is. There is no other. Well, having that belief is somehow bigoted and wrong and terrible. Or the opposite, well, why do you care so much? It's not important. So it's either ultra important or it's not important at all. Just attempts to silence you. But people are going to think that anyway. So just own it. Going back in time, quite a few years, it was mentioned that when possibly the biggest outpouring of the Spirit and evangelistic movement in Christianity occurred when the Apostle Paul set out from Antioch back in the day, and it was at that place that the followers were first called Christians. And Christians was an insult. They're like little Christ. They're all saying they want to be like Christ, was the idea. And they owned it and say, yeah, well, actually, we are Christians. Well, just own it. So people say, yeah, you think the only marriage is between a man and a woman? Yeah, I do. Like everyone has done for thousands of years. It's been doing pretty well. What have you got? You know, take hold of this truth, that the biblical truth is the real truth. I disagree with you. I'm not attacking you. I'm just saying that I believe something different.
Yes.
So what's your problem? I'm not saying you can't do anything. I'm just saying that it's wrong. I don't have any power over you. So just chill out, relax, and let me declare what I believe. And even if you were to become a Christian, yeah, it has some restriction on your sexual life. Well, it's the same for heterosexuals as homosexuals. You're only allowed to have sex with one person. So it's only one person different. There isn't the big problem that you claim there is in terms of prejudice. And we're putting great restrictions on ourselves. So lighten up. No, people won't listen to all that. But they would have called you bigoted anyway, so you might as well go out and support Christ and be called a bigot for that than sitting at home and not standing up for it. And I think that's the meaning, Beryl, behind the idea that being persecuted is a blessing, because then it shows that you're actually standing up for Christ, because you wouldn't have got the persecution if you didn't bother to go out. I've just taken one issue there. Abortion, as I say, at the moment is another issue. But there's also euthanasia, of course.
Yes, that looks like it's coming.
Euthanasia, killing people, seems to be very popular for those of the liberal theology or left-wing politics. They seem to love it. They love killing people. Apparently this is a great thing to do, killing old people, dispatching young people before they're even born. And Christians don't believe that that's right. You know, who's being more humane? You know, let's stand up for these things. And I think, personally, this is a personal point, I think ridicule of the opposing point of view is part of arguing. So yes. I'm quite happy to ridicule these points of view because, personally, I think they're ridiculous. And anyway, people are going to hate me anyway. Even if I don't say it, so you might as well do it. And if you do that, if you ridicule the opposing point of view, you may not change their mind. You might do, because they might think, oh yeah, I'm being ridiculous. But what you do is you support people who agree with you. You give them ammunition.
Yes.
You give them covering fire to go on believing.
It's better to stand for something than to fall for anything.
Yes. Who said that? I've heard that
I
phrase
don't
before.
remember.
If anyone knows, let us on a postcard, please, to Flame Radio, care of BBC. Anyway.